trying to get somewhat balanced.
Balance above all else.
No.
Balance.
Okay, looks like we're roughly
Yeah, we're
equal.
equalish.
You tend to sit a little further back from the mic
Whom?
than I do, Nathan. But
Do you want me to just straight up make out with it? Just
I mean,
get
that's
real-
pretty much
get
what I
real
do. At some point, we should upgrade to those microphones that are like straight on the Shure.
Ones, yes.
Is that what you have?
No.
Okay. But
Yes. Someday when we have money.
they have affordable ones anyway. That are, but
The real nice ones are like $350.
yeah, that's true.
$3.50.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's a low price.
That's illegal. But wait, there's more.
But wait.
Act now, and we can talk to you about your car's extended warranty.
Disclaimer: there is a class action lawsuit against because our disclaimer was not thorough enough. the last
Anything you
time.
say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
This is true. Speaking of true, we are truly in the studio once more.
We are all truly in the studio.
All together.
Because you guys are usually truly in the studio.
That's true.
Whereas
minus,
I am
we have
not.
never not been.
minus the vodka, we are otherwise truly in the studio.
Yes.
But yes, it is nice to be back together once more. There are actual leaves on the trees as I look outside. It is a
Never mind the fact that the trees are attempting to kill us.
yeah,
Or at least our bodies perceive that the trees are attempting to kill us.
and overreact accordingly.
I pity you lower creatures who have bad... I don't have bad
See-
allergies in the spring.
For whatever reason, the trees in Fargo are not nearly as aggressive as the trees back home because I go home.
Well, there's just a lot less of them.
Yeah, the
That's
trees,
true.
The trees in Minnesota have a lot more competition to spread pollen.
Yeah. I was home briefly over the weekend and just because I went to the house and then we went to Lake Fit to fish. But the brief time I was at the house, I was like already starting to like get stuffy and even lose my voice a little bit, which is weird, but happens occasionally with pollen and whatnot. But I definitely once we get to like August and we have a grain harvest and dust and stuff everywhere, that's when my allergies really kick in.
Uh-huh.
And ragweed. I'm apparently very allergic to ragweed.
Dun, 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 do, 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 do.
Connect the dots. Palladium Papist edition. You just do one of those coloring book connect the dots, and it's just like a guy playing ragtime on a piano smoking weed. Ragweed. Do you have ragweed allergies? Don't fill out this dot to dot.
I feel like that would be more like weed rag. Because usually when you got a ragtime song...
Well, a rag about weed would be weed rag.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's right. Like,
Because you've got...
you can have rag, but the modifier to rag would come before it. Because it's rag,
weed-
unless the weed is the primary activity and the ragtime is just sort of accidental,
Yeah.
then it would be ragweed.
Because every ragtime song I know ends with rag as opposed to
Because
having...
is the rag about the weed, or are you doing the weed with the rag?
No, you're doing the rag with the weed.
Ah,
That's what you'd have to have ragweed.
yeah. So
It is the weed you have with your rag.
It's the rag you have with your weed.
just
The weed is the primary activity in order for the adjective to be rag.
let's see. Oh, what is the name of the song with like Snoop Dogg and 50 Cent? I think, right? It was like the blump 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 blump. I'm just that piano riff. What was that one called again?
That's definitely not Snoop Dogg. I believe 50 Cent is in that, but I don't think Snoop Dogg is.
because they did it in the Super Bowl halftime show this year.
Well, that's because they did a medley of just everybody's stuff.
Oh no, Dr. Dre. That's who I was thinking
Yes.
of. Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. I'm just imagining that blap 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 that piano thing.
Yeah.
But ragtime it. I want to see somebody do that. I know I came across a YouTube channel a couple years ago where there was this guy who just ragtimes these different like pop songs, but I'll have to see if that made the cut.
There were a couple of ragtime songs that my dad played with my grandpa and uncles, just on acoustic guitar. They were fun.
My mom still plays The Entertainer, which is one of the classics.
Oh, yes, classics of that too.
I don't know if that's like strictly speaking a ragtime, but it's of that era.
I'm not sure what genre that.
I think rag.
You can play it in the ragtime style if you want it.
Yeah, rag is like very like fast-paced jazz piano, right? More or less.
Pretty
It's
much, yeah.
proto jazz.
I would say it predates. Like, say your 1920s or earlier.
Yeah, 1910s is when ragtime really starts to show up.
Which musical movement was that part of? Like, because you had sort of the late 1800s, like sort of bar music,
Yeah.
It's like the Harlem sort of.
Globetrotters.
No, not the Globetrotters.
They're different.
But it was sort of the first time that like African music started becoming popular. Like they started putting American popular music spin on it, out of which you got basically all popular music today.
Yeah.
Like rock and roll is based on the same kind of African blues paradigm.
Chuck Berry was just doing the guitar riffs. He was copying what they were playing on the piano and those like jazz and blues stuff, and that's what eventually rolled into, Elvis and stuff, and other rock.
And
then we got involved in the '60s.
Yeah,
it all comes full circle.
And then the culmination,
The revenge of the white folks.
Yeah, the
the
culmination happened. The apex of music civilization was the School of Rock, starring Jack Black. No,
I have not seen that one.
You haven't?
I watched it.
Miranda Cosgrove as a child is in it.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
I watched it by myself a few months ago, actually.
sounds sad.
Well, everybody else was in bed, and I felt like staying up because it was a Friday night.
That explains it. I probably was in bed.
Yeah.
It was a Friday night.
And it was one of those things where I came across it on whatever streaming platform it was. I was like, I've never watched this all the way through. I'm going to watch this all the way through. And I did. And I liked it. It was fun. I was like, I see why this is a classic.
Neat.
It's Jack Black affirming people
Yeah.
in their musical choices.
Yep.
So it's like strictly positive.
He's probably most known, I would imagine, for that and Nacho Libre are like his two big ones from the early 2000s.
And then Tenacious D, of course.
Yeah, Tenacious D, and then Kung Fu Panda, but that's as a voice acting talent.
And now he's going to be Bowser in the Mario movie.
Oh, yeah.
The Chris Pratt Mario.
The Chris Pratt Mario.
It's me. I'm Mario.
It's me. I'm deceased.
Yeah.
The cover, the poster they released of Chris Pratt with Mario on it just looked like it was an obituary.
It did.
In loving memory.
Because it was in black and white.
It was supposed to look all artsy and cool, and it was just not.
In loving memory of Chris Mario Pratt.
I've played all the Marios.
I've played all the Marios.
They
should have had Donkey do the voice of Mario. That would have been amazing. I mean, if you could just have a bunch of... If you could...
Just sample and sequence the Hotel Mario and old Super Show
run that
clips.
through a neural network and do an AI-generated Mario voice. I'm just really sad that Chris Martinet didn't get it.
Charles Martinet.
Charles Martinet.
Yeah. Although apparently he is involved still somehow. Part of me's like really hoping he's a Waluigi cameo at the end.
Nice.
But I don't know.
Or you get the Hallelujah chorus as like the end credit song or something.
No, knowing Illumination, it'll probably be some dumb pop song.
Yeah.
Unless, they actually
know what
the content
fans of Nintendo like? Katy Perry. That's what we're going to do.
We totally understand our target demographics.
Let's be real. The people at Illumination are probably all robots. It's like...
Yeah, everything after their first couple movies was written by an AI.
Yeah. We're kind of hitting that point now. Them and... Well, I'd say Sony Animation would be more guilty of that because you had the Emoji movie.
They're more hit and miss, I feel like, because they made
true.
Spider-Verse.
That's true. But I mean, like the...
But that was kind of driven by Lord and Miller.
Right. Who do their own thing and whichever...
When left to their own devices, they make the Emoji movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen, nor do I care.
If you or a loved one have seen an unsupervised... have seen a movie that Sony Animation made unsupervised, you may be entitled to financial compensation. What's another, like, terrible movie studio?
I don't know. There's a few of them.
Like, just consistently
Whoever
bad.
made 6 Sharknadoes.
Oh, yeah.
They're, like, kind of bad on purpose, though.
Yeah, they are. But it's still, like...
It doesn't make it
it's
better that
too
it's bad.
It's not, like...
Like, that's their
Kung
brand.
Fury homebrew bad. It's,
Yeah.
like, intentionally makes you cringe. And I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of
There's
cringe
some
humor.
There's some value to that like, once. 6 is horrid.
Right, but you gotta air something during Shark Week. You can't just play reruns of Shark Tank all the time.
Or is the
that's what they watch on Shark
or
Week,
is
right?
Megalodon still alive? Documentaries.
Spoilers, they don't find him.
They never find anything in Discovery Channel like, where is this hidden thing?
I'm not saying it was aliens,
but I'm not saying it was History
for a channel
Channel.
called Discovery Channel.
They discover
very little.
basically nothing. I've probably talked about this before, but I remember watching the one show where they're like hunting Sasquatch or something. And they're like in these people's backyard. And, you know, the damage to their house was absolutely a bear. Because they live in the woods and it was just like ripped screen door and stuff. But, you know, they had the music and the file photos and like the dramatic people looking at the computer like, oh no, that's totally a Squatch. And then they're all like posted out in these people's backyard in the woods. And there's the one dude. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Oh, we're picking something up on thermal. What is it? What is it? And the guy who's running the thermal camera just is he's standing on these people's back deck. Nothing around him. He's like, what happened? What happened? I'm on the ground. Like, you fell on the ground without moving. Just conveniently at the time you were about to see something on the scope. Oh boy.
Gotta punch. A cameraman walked up and punched him in the knee.
Yeah.
We need drama. Get over there. And
Well, behind the camera is the Sasquatch Protection Agency. And
that's what it is. It's all funded by the Sasquatch himself.
it's funded by Big Sasquatch. Like,
They're trying to keep you in the dark. Wake up, people.
wake up, sheeple. The Sasquatch is real, and he's coming for you.
We elected you
it's all
president.
there. The secrets of the universe.
And stunning detail. I mean, who makes all that soap? Let's be real. It's probably Sasquatch sweatshops in Canada. The evil Dr. Squatch is going to take us over far before China ever
Dr.
does.
Squatch. That's that, like, overly pricey new soap company
Where
that
the guy
I
is,
get
like,
Facebook ads on.
Cussing you out for not using their soap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that.
it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And then they sell you $25 bars of soap that are like 4x4.
That's like 5. It's like 4 or 5 boxes of Irish Spring, like packs.
Well, to be fair, Irish Spring does suck.
It does.
If you want bar soap, buy Sterling Soap Company. They make...
Not sponsored.
Definitely not sponsored. But I would totally take a sponsorship from them.
I should like
Because I use a lot of their stuff.
I should actually go through and like set up a business bank account for all this stuff. But
Nah,
that would
we would have to have money coming
That's
in
true.
for
We'd
that
have to
to
have
be
money.
relevant.
We'll see what the YouTube channel does. Maybe that'll go somewhere. Or it'll just be like this and it's for fun only, and that's fine.
I mean, yeah, it's perfectly fine, but I did just spend a lot on a second controller and Lego Star Wars.
True. But you also wanted that.
I also wanted it, and I graduated, so
Yeah.
I'm giving it to myself.
We'll see. But But yeah, no.
We'll figure it. We'll start doing that at some point. That'll be fun.
Squatch. What are they hiding?
Themselves.
Yeah. See, there's all this to do again in the news about this government hearing on UFOs, but it's like, when are we going to get the congressional hearings about like Sasquatch or the swamp gas monster or the Yetis or Loch Ness? Like, when's that coming down?
I mean, I don't think America's involved in Loch Ness monster very
You don't
much.
know.
I mean, no, I do not. Just a hunch.
Let's not talk about the fact that the Loch Ness monster predates the existence of the nation of the United States.
Yeah, but let's, the water horse came from somewhere. Like, where was the inspiration of that film drawn from? Like, you can't tell me they made a mythical creature completely by their imaginations in CGI. That never happens in films.
Nope.
Speaking of making imaginary creatures out of CGI in films
And UFOs.
and conspiracies.
Hey, we're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
That is
Oddly perfect conversation
yeah.
leading up to our philosophical this week.
Yeah, we're talking about Arrival.
In a world where one man will decide whether to pull a lever and kill one man, or not pull a lever and allow 5 people to die. Find out in Philosophical.
Whose rival?
The Arrival.
But it doesn't specify that it's any particular person's rival. It just says a rival.
Rival.
It's not the rival.
Right.
It's
Rising
the
up.
indefinite article.
It doesn't say anything about the Eye of the Tiger. It's the thrill of the fight, or rising up to the challenge of Arrival. It just says Arrival at the beginning.
That was quite a long setup for that, but okay.
That's the lyrics for.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
I've seen Rocky 3.
But we're not talking about Rocky 3 today. We're talking about the Oscar-nominated and snubbed Arrival.
Indeed, we are. So, Arrival came out in 2016, directed by Denis Villeneuve. The same guy who directed Dune.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right. You said that first.
He likes space movies.
Movies.
Should. And turn on Bryant's soundbar. Because then you won't be able to hear the movie like God intended.
Isn't this just like the theater? What? My eardrums are ruptured.
I can't hear what the characters are saying.
See,
but it sounds cool, I guess.
Yeah. Although it's nothing like the legendary subwoofer in our basement at the old house, which is rattling everything on the entertainment center.
It was rattling because we had like the remote thing right on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just vibrating so much that the remote thing just kind of rattled around. Not because it was like shaking the house or anything.
It was great.
But it was a powerful little thing.
Yeah.
It's a little too powerful for its size, but
for the
anyway.
space in which it found itself.
Speaking of powerful, we are besides our ability to get sidetracked. What's the movie?
Well,
I saw this in theaters, and I introduced Nathan and Riley to it last night.
I wasn't introduced to it. I had seen it before.
Oh, you had?
We
Okay.
borrowed it from the library or something at some point.
Oh, okay.
Or it was on Netflix when we had it, something like that.
Gotcha.
One of those things. But last night was the first time I saw it. So I may have the most incomplete summary, but since you guys have seen it more times than me, you can jump in with details if necessary.
Yep.
So the movie begins with Louise Banks, and we don't know yet that she's Louise Banks, and her daughter Hannah. And just some scenes of them growing up. And there is noticeably no dad present, so that's worth noting. And eventually, they go through the motions of life, and we find out that Hannah contracted something, probably some kind of cancer, not really specified what, but she dies at a very young age.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're given at the start. And it cuts to Dr. Banks walking into her classroom to teach a class about Portuguese linguistics. And nobody's there. There's 7 people in the room, and all their phones are going off, and it's typical, there's going to be a commentary on the kids.
But actually, look at the news. There's some crazy world news happening.
Yeah, the crazy world news is that these bean-looking UFO things have almost landed, not quite touched the ground, in several different spots around the world. One of which happens to be in Montana.
Which there's a total of 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so these bean-looking UFO things they're not doing anything.
They have nothing to do with Chicago either.
Nope.
No.
That one's a silver bean.
Yeah, this one's sort of a...
These are kind of matte black.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite matte, more of a satin, but
Yeah.
beside the point. So they're not doing anything. They're just kind of there. And all the different governments of the places which they have landed are kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And I guess Louise at some point in her life had done some work for the feds.
Being a language expert,
Language-
teacher of linguistics.
She translated videos of insurgents and
Why we couldn't get normal language or people in the...
interpreters, who knows?
They were probably using some ancient dead language. That's
be.
the plausible explanation that came to my head. Is like
Could be.
that no one outside of a university professor
Although
would ever care to know.
I think you might have said Farsi, and they could plausibly say they couldn't get an interpreter.
There's no way they don't have someone who speaks Farsi in the United States.
Yeah. Anyway.
Somewhere. Anyway. That's beside the point.
She's done work for the
She's
government.
done work,
and they're
has
like, hey,
has top secret clearance, and they're like, hey, come translate things. Slap an audio file on your desk and say, translate that. And she's like, no, I can't.
What even is that?
Don't you understand that language is always defined in terms of other language? If you give me 5 seconds of audio, I can't do anything with that.
mm-hmm.
And so they're like, well, what would it take for you to do it? She's like, I need to go be in contact with them. They're like, and she's like, that's what I gotta do. And they're like, okay, we're gonna go to Berkeley and get the hipster guy down there.
She's like, well, ask him what the Sanskrit word is for war. Okay. Then they come back. And they're like, yeah, we need you. She's like, what do you say it was?
The desire for many cows.
Yep. So that, yeah, they fly off on a helicopter to the alien site in Montana. And on the way they meet Jeremy Renner's character, what is his name?
Ian.
Who's a physicist, I believe.
Who's a physicist who's somehow going to be involved in the project to understand alien language.
I think the idea was that, she's going to translate the language so he can ask them physics questions about how their spaceship got here, and we'll be done in a week. Good job, government.
Mm-hmm.
Audibly pats himself on the back.
Narrator, it didn't happen that way.
They waltzed in, and they all had to wear hazmat suits, so it was, callous and unopened communication. And so they didn't get anywhere with that.
Well, they get into the alien ship.
Into the alien ship. And there's like weird gravity different in there.
Yeah, it goes sideways.
Gravity goes sideways.
And the aesthetic is remarkably similar to aspects of Control, but we're not going to talk about that. And the black
and the white fog and stuff.
Yeah.
But the point is they get nowhere in their first session, and so they're like, hey, we're going to put you back up there one more time. If you can't do it, you're fired. We'll get somebody else.
Yep.
And so,
or even worse, people around the world are like, oh crap, aliens.
Let's kill them.
Let's nuke them.
And they're doing all they can to try to hold things together to keep things from getting crazy.
But, people be people and people be crazy.
Mm-hmm. A cult in North Dakota is apparently going insane. That's just
North Dakota stereotypes for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
We only had a cult once, okay? And it was more of a gang than a cult. But anyway, moving on.
Anyway, Louise takes matters into her own hands, and
there's this little canary or bird thing they have in a cage as like sort of a canary in the coal mine. Just be like, is the oxygen good here? And she's like, well, that's thing's still alive. It must be safe for me to breathe. So she pulls off her hazmat suit, and at first the government people are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? She's like, if they can't see me, we can't communicate. So,
and also she's decided talking is ineffective because we don't know what anything is. So how about we try and decipher writing instead?
So she writes on a whiteboard her name and Ian's name, and the aliens shoot out from their tentacles these inky circle things, which are some sort of
imagine if
writing.
The aliens kind of look like giant 7-fingered hands, kind of octopus things.
The heptapods, as they come to be called.
Although actually these two in particular, they name Abbott and Costello.
Mm-hmm. So slowly over time, Louise manages...
They start to grasp a semblance of the language. So Louise puts together the fact that these circles are actually communicative not of sound but of meanings.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So they piece together the correlations.
It's a non-phonetic language.
Yes. So these symbols represent ideas, not sounds. So they piece together what these different symbols mean and how they interact. And
all the while, the government's breathing down their neck like, you gotta ask them why they're here. And it's like, but to find out why they're here, they need to understand what a question is. And also what here means. And
also why. And also who,
why.
What, when, where.
And then we need enough words to know what they're going to say back to us.
And like,
right?
hurry up, because China and Russia are getting antsy and they want to blow it up.
And they're also making some progress. Other people are making limited progress in their communication, although Louise is the
sort of
most effective one
at
so
the
far.
forefront of it. At a certain point, the aliens, they manage to communicate with them, and the heptapods say something to the effect of,
use weapon.
Yep.
Give weapon.
And they're like, and the government's like, "Ooh, does that mean harm?" They said weapon. Like, hold on. We don't know what that means yet.
You know, weapon could just be tool. We have only taught them a couple of words. It could be any number of things. We need to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
We need to not go nuts, but then people go nuts because the aliens say weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually in China they also got a similar response where instead of give weapon, the aliens told them use weapon. And it's like, that's even meaner.
Because they're learning to communicate with the aliens using mahjong, which is
inherently competitive.
Yeah. So if
the conditions are win and loss, and that's it.
There's no
it's less open.
If you're thinking in that sort of paradigm, you're going to
non-zero sum game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So at this point, they've kind of made some breakthroughs and developments. Like they're able to translate the writing and be able to basically project images of using the aliens' writing alphabet, more or less, to communicate with them back and forth.
But also, while putting this together, Louise is going through some stuff.
She's having
visions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
flashes of memory ?
Of her child's life and death, and she's kind of not feeling current in the present moment all the time. Sometimes she just kind of, her mind wanders to another time where she's talking to her daughter about why her dad left or stuff like that.
She's and this is happening more and more as she's becoming more and more learned in the alien language.
She's just being more distractible by things not in the current time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're stressed out by this whole thing. The generals want you to ask them why they're here.
Under a lot of pressure to do something very difficult because it's nothing like any human language.
Yes.
So some soldiers get paranoid, and after the whole give weapon incident, and so they try to blow up the aliens with C4, while Louise and Ian are up there trying to talk to the aliens. Yeah. The aliens notice the danger and manipulate the gravity to push them out of the chamber so they don't die. And after the explosion, the alien ship moves a little further away from the surface after sort of the insubordination by the paranoid soldiers. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, oh, great. Do they mean us harm now? Are things getting real? And China's like, screw you guys. I'm going to fire. And so they're all gearing up for an attack on the alien ship. And
the beams all turn sideways and things look like they're going bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Then our Montana ship shoots out a little pod for
Louise
to get into. So she's like, "Hey, I want to go talk to the heptapods. I want to sort this out. I want to say sorry and see what I can figure out from them."
And she goes off on her own to do this.
And so she goes into their chamber because previously the heptapods had just set up a oxygen chamber for the humans to come into. Whereas they're always behind this smoke screen veil of glass that has their like much more viscous atmosphere in it. But now Louise finds herself beyond the veil, in their environment, breathing their gases, and mostly doing pretty all right.
And she's communicating with one of the aliens. I forget if it was Abbott.
I think
It was Costello.
It was Costello.
Abbott died.
Yeah, Abbott.
Abbott was in death process.
Yep.
Whether that means he's already dead or he's currently dying, who knows? But
Yeah.
That's the words that he chose to tell her.
So she tries to drill down with Costello and be like, "What do you mean use weapon? Like, what's going on here?" And he clarifies, the language is a weapon.
I don't think he clarifies that right away.
No.
this is like,
But he
we
also,
gave you this thing to help you.
because we need your help in 3,000 years. So if we can't communicate, that's not going to work. And she's like, "Wait a minute. How do you know what's going to happen?" He's like, "Well, haven't you figured out that our language is nonlinear?
It unlocks time.
Our perception of time is nonlinear.
Yep.
And our language facilitates that."
Yep. So
Our conception of time is nonlinear because our language makes it so, is the movie's presentation of it.
yeah. So, and I guess in sort of the panicked moments before the explosion earlier, the heptapods left like a whole, like, it looked like a keyboard mashing of different characters and their language just all over the place. So they managed to capture images of it. And what they come to understand is like, wait a minute, this is basically their entire language here they left for us.
Well, 1/12 of their entire language here.
yeah.
Because it's all split up between the different beans.
And they're like, "Well, now we need to talk to the other countries and tell them to get their alphabet from them." And they're like, "No, but they're going to go blow up the aliens."
And we discover that Louise is having basically flash forwards of her life. And she has a flash forward where she's talking to the Chinese general who was about to launch all the nukes at the aliens. And he's telling her, like, "I don't know how you know this, or I didn't know how you know this or how your mind works, but you did one thing nobody else could do that has changed my mind. Here's my number. Here's my private phone number, and these are the dying words of my wife." And so she has this, I guess.
I think what he said was, "You called me on my private number." Like this had happened already in the flash forwards perspective.
Yeah, right. And so, well, yeah, because
you called me and told me my wife's dying words, and I trusted the fact that you knew that meant something important. So I called off the nukes.
Yep.
And then she goes and proceeds to do just that
In the current year 2016.
in present day 2016.
Yep. Averting the crisis, and the aliens, their mission's accomplished, leave.
Their beans evaporate into smoke and are gone.
Meanwhile, Louise is still has been having a bunch more flash forwards about her and Ian's daughter, as we come to realize that, she knows that she gets married to Ian. And then also she tells Ian about how she knows their daughter is going to die, and that's why Ian
in the
leaves
future.
in the future.
I figured that out about halfway through.
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of that. I'm like,
Well, because the only other like male character that could possibly be a candidate
was Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Was that actually Joaquin Phoenix? It kind of looked like him to me.
Where?
The director guy, not the military, not Weber.
The guy who was
the guy who wore the blue
CIA,
shirt,
the CIA guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, no, that wasn't Joaquin Phoenix, but
it
now that
looks
you
like
mention
him a
it,
bit.
yeah. It's like a more portly Joaquin Phoenix after a fashion, but
no.
But yeah, so it's become clear. I mean, because this whole project has taken months, and Ian and Louise have worked very closely on it. They've sort of fallen in love with each other, and then at the end of the movie, it ends in like the same scene where it began, in her house next to a lake, and they're married now, and they're like, "You want to have a baby? Yeah,
let's do that."
Mm-hmm.
Even though she knows what's going to happen with said baby.
And there's a question posed at some point in the movie, she asks Ian after the aliens leave, if you knew how your whole life was going to go, would you change anything?
If you had the chance to
change your fate,
would you? If you had one shot, one opportunity.
Would you capture it? Would you just fall flat on your face?
It's interesting in that final moment at the end of the movie.
Till I collapse, I'm spilling these circles.
At the end of the movie, actually, this at the end of the movie, like as she's contemplating this decision with her husband now, I guess, to have the baby, like she's seeing all these premonitions basically of the life, she still chooses, yeah, let's do it, which is kind of neat. We can get more into it later, but
that's the premise of the movie. It's like overall, kind of like plot wise, a very short film. It's very simple, if I want to say that. I mean,
the events are straightforward.
The events are straightforward.
Yeah. What are some cool things we like about it?
Well, I happen to have recently finished a philosophy of language capstone paper.
Nice.
So I have done a lot of research on this topic over the last few months, and found it an interesting way to apply those things that I've learned in analyzing this movie. So they mention this thing in the movie called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which, boil it down, is the idea that languages are relative in that you can't really compare them with one another because languages shape the way we think. You know, the classic example that gets cited a lot is they did some experiments between English and Yucatec Mayan in the 1800s. And what they found is that, like, the Yucatec Mayan only has what's called mass nouns, which are, like, referring to things categorically. Like, when you say fish, that's a plural noun. Mm-hmm. It fits the form of the singular and plural. That's what constitutes a mass noun. Whereas in English, we have that distinction between, count nouns and mass nouns, whereas Yucatec Mayan doesn't. They have only mass nouns. And so that influenced the way they approached activities that they were instructed to do. So there's something to this idea that the language you speak and the way it's constructed impacts the way you think and do things. Mm-hmm. Now, you apply that to this heptapod language that has this non-phonetic, meaning-based communication form. And it poses the question whether a non-linear concept of time encoded in a language would result in beings thinking that way.
Also, the writing is circular, so it doesn't have a beginning point or an end point. It's non-linear.
It's more like it's sort of a cloud of meanings strapped together.
A Rorschach ink blot in a circle.
Mm-hmm. Which apparently they actually went through and designed like the entire heptapod language and only used about 70% of it for the movie.
Neat.
Which is kind of cool. That they went to that level. It's like, you know what? Let's just get a freaking linguist and a graphic designer in here and let's make a language. But yeah, let's see. What are some other cool things about the movie?
It's a interesting way of approaching communication between two parties or classes of beings that have never interacted before. Because with human natural languages, we've had situations where like people came from the old world to the new world and communicated with Native Americans somehow.
And there's a lot of communications breakdowns because the languages are basically
Developed separate.
Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Yeah.
So, but the differences are so fundamental in these two beings' way of communicating that it creates something. It's like, that's interesting. I wonder how that would work. How our ancestors did that. How they approached things when they came here.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of points to this reality of language developing in shared activity.
Yep.
Which is another one of the key points in my paper, is like the way we teach kids language is like you're in the living room and you're playing and you're like black, and your toddler goes black, and so your shared attention upon this object and your activity of playing with it is the way that language develops
And
grows in
and that's how
person's
like
vocabulary.
Luis is initially able to communicate with the aliens. When
Yeah.
she's writing things on a whiteboard and the aliens
Directing attention and activity to a common thing between the two parties.
That's how the Chinese were doing it with a game.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In similar fashion.
So yeah, language through shared activity.
Mm-hmm. Which I believe in like the early instances of European contact with the Native Americans, it was a similar deal, but like with trading basically different goods and valuables. They did lots of like sign language and different things like that to be able to communicate. But yeah, let's see. I also really liked how the movie is cleverly put together in that when you're first watching it, you assume that these are flashbacks that Louise is having at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all happened, like her daughter passing away and everything has happened before, because I guess we're used to that linear storytelling model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the movie, the twist is sort of in that, actually, no, this none of this has happened yet at this point in the movie. So it sort of underscores that it sort of helps the audience understand on a certain level what a non-linear perception of time might look like, because it's sort of a hard thing to explain without that sort of illustration on a different level, which I found fascinating when I first watched it.
Yeah, and there's a point in like the middle of the movie where
You're starting to get clued into
Louise,
it. Yeah.
where Louise actually, you can see when she starts having these flash forwards.
Yeah.
Because like previously, it had just been audience only information,
Mm-hmm.
but now she has these flash forwards and it's new information to her. But so like on a first viewing, you could be like, oh, she's sad because she's remembering her daughter, whereas it's
Now,
actually no, she's like
on a second
utterly
watching, it's like,
confused.
oh yeah, she's like confused. Like, what the heck are these thoughts I keep having?
Who's
You
this
also
girl?
wonder, like, I found myself wondering for a while, like, when is this going to come in? Like, when is this going to matter in the character arc?
Yep. It's
When
like, the answer is not yet,
Not
but also
yet.
right now.
Yes. So, yeah, it was kind of a neat expectation subversion in that.
Mhm.
That's it.
It still managed to have a payoff, a good payoff too. Because I feel like a lot of times when intentional subversion of expectation often ends with like the point is like sort of a disappointment of that expectation, but this is like, oh, this is an understanding of it that I did not see coming, but it makes total sense.
And it's also something I kind of found interesting when thinking back on it, is at the end of the movie, Louise makes the choice that I've seen my whole life, but I'm going to live it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I kind of get the vibe that the heptapods are very much reserved to that same kind of thing.
Yep.
It's like Abbott came anyway, even though he was going to get blown up.
Yep.
Right?
And likely knew that was going to happen.
They both knew that was going to happen, but they knew it had to because it was
Crucial for their race, basically. Like in some way, like
because whatever they saw that was 3,000 years later is much worse than Abbott getting blown up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there was, I think, the door for interpreting the possibility of changing things is left open.
Right.
Yep.
It's like, you could argue that them coming at all to help the humans is something that they needed to do in order for the humans to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's not like pure foreknowledge, but it's like, you can
More of a
maybe,
premonition.
yeah,
Where it's not like concretely set in stone. Gonna happen.
that was the way I interpreted it on first glance.
But also, Louise uses future information to get current things done.
Yeah.
The way that the aliens kind of seem to.
So you could plausibly interpret that maybe she sees her child's rare disease coming and they find some sort of treatment for it. Potentially. Who knows?
Yeah.
She's,
or that they go and help the heptapods 3,000 years from now.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Which is the more like explicitly like hinted at, I suppose.
Well, she's got to teach a lot of people that language.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
In fact, that's what she's doing in the ending scenes of the film that kind of show what happened after they left.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how the movie sort of pulls little pieces of the audience experience from a couple different genres where it's like, the twist at the end, like say your M. Night Shyamalan movie or like a mystery film where like that piece clicks into place and you look back and it all fits together.
He was dead the whole time.
Yeah, that type of thing. I thought was really cool. And I remember when I went to watch it in theater, my buddy was like, yeah, it's an alien invasion movie. And so at the beginning of the movie, like, it's starting to look like, okay, yeah, there's chaos. People are panicking. Like the aliens are here. It's kind of scary.
There's this high tension,
Yeah.
not sure how it's going to shake out sort of a feel.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, this isn't an alien invasion movie. They're not invading. They're
Visiting.
they're visiting.
They're
and
politely visiting.
They're
They haven't even landed.
They're offering gifts. They come bearing gifts.
We just want to talk to you. Literally, we just want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
That is
I just
all
want
we
to talk.
came to do.
I just want to talk. I just want to talk.
But yeah, any other cool things, I guess, before we get into the analysis?
I mean, there's a lot of other like cool things. They're like, oh, that's more of a beauty thing, isn't it? Or,
Yeah. Yeah. Should we get into it then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truth. What is true in Arrival?
Language grows in shared activity.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, I've got this thing in my brain and it's there before I ever put words to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
You have to
And
form
I just
and shape those
magically download it. No. The way that we do everything as humans is in shared activity.
thoughts. Mm-hmm.
And language is just one of those parts.
Yeah. It's a medium by which, well, the act
You
of,
always define words in terms of other words.
Mhm.
Like, you can't just... your dictionary isn't a USB drive that you stick
Yeah.
in your forehead.
And words only mean something in as much as they are understood by more than one person.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the very language itself is communicative. Like they
Yes.
have the same root word.
Yeah, it's like I could
Commune, in common.
I could make up a language that has meanings to every word, but if nobody else knows what it is, that has no point. It has no meaning.
Mm-hmm. What else is true? I suppose there's something to be said, I guess, with like not linear versus non-linear views of time.
I think it's interesting. It's more like
A thought
looking
experiment if life worked this way,
yeah,
because it doesn't work that way
right. That's the key point.
as far as we know right now.
But
Yeah.
also seeing the world from the perspective of an other,
Mm-hmm.
right? From someone you don't understand.
Yeah.
Getting a glimpse into how they experience the world can
Mm-hmm.
be helpful and useful.
And give you a new level of understanding. I guess we were sort of having this debate last night whether one could plausibly come up with a language that is non-phonetic. Was it like the main debate being like it's non-phonetic?
No, we've got lots of non-phonetic languages.
True.
We've got many pictographic languages, like Mandarin Chinese is a non-phonetic language.
Machine code is a non-phonetic language.
True. But what was I'm
the-
forgetting? What was our main debate with
I
Bryant last
think
night?
he was... I don't remember. Let's ask him. He's right out there.
Brian, what was your objection to the movie again last night?
Well, like, you were coming up with whether it was plausible to create a language that did something. What was the something?
Last night, that whole debate we had after Arrival was done.
The one I went to bed before.
You were trying to contend that it was implausible.
That exists through mouth probably wouldn't happen to describe something as a whole, like an entire idea.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, like, the holism of the heptapod language, whether humans...
Where it
would
was
come
more
up with something.
purely based on
It's
meaning.
just, it communicates meaning, not... There's not the separate layer of sign, but there is still, because there's blot.
And we sort of argued that, yes, that was
That's
plausible.
possible. It's not super likely if you didn't have the idea in your head to begin with.
Right.
If you were doing that without intention, you couldn't just like stumble upon that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible to do it.
Thank you, background guest host Bryant.
StarCraft episode
Of
fame.
a bug strife. Fame,
Yeah, of a bug strife fame. Thanks, Bryant.
which we had someone listen to.
What's that?
We had someone listen to that episode.
Nice. I haven't looked at the analytics in forever. Any
Whoever
other,
you are that's listening to our old episodes,
Thank you.
hello.
Hello.
Send
this
us
is
an
a
email.
new episode.
but it
Send
will
us
be an old
email.
one by the time you listen to it, probably. So thanks for doing that. Any other truths I guess we want to get into?
Yeah.
Yes.
I suppose there was sort of it wasn't really central to the movie, but like that idea of accepting marriage and parenthood with the knowledge that pain and suffering are likely to come from it was kind of a cool little note at the end.
That might be more of a goodness thing.
I suppose.
Could be a good
Could be.
So yeah, let's start with that then. Yeah, goodness, that was the piece right there. Bam.
Boom. Did it.
What else is good in Arrival?
The heptapods are pretty good.
They're pretty chill. They're like...
Ultimately,
They're just
benevolent
like-
purpose. Or as we heard it last night. But yeah, no, their desire to share like this tool, this weapon, I suppose, with humanity.
And then in the midst of all the government people, like you gotta step it up, you got, or we're gonna blow them up. Having a couple people be like, no, slow it down. We need to let cooler heads prevail.
We
It's
need
like,
to operate in good faith and assume that they are also operating in good faith,
because thus far they haven't blown us up.
which is a good sort of. I mean, and they in the movie state a bunch of examples of cultures coming in contact.
And
Having
ending
misunderstandings.
very badly for one or both of the cultures.
Trying to learn those lessons in this instance, which is a useful lesson for us to have just in general. It's like if you don't have a basis of understanding with somebody else, or like two different cultures, like you need to be able to take that step back, approach it in good faith, and seek to understand the other before you are understood yourself, if you're going to have good communications, essentially. Good relations with the other, which was more of a truth thing, but
Right, but it's good that our
we're all thinking the Yoda meme.
we're all
Good
thinking the Yoda
relations
meme.
with the Wookiees.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
Yoda on Xbox. Anyway,
Go. I will.
what? Any other goodness in the movie? I guess Ian. He's very supportive of Louise. He's very much a supporting character.
Yes.
Right. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot to do, being the fact that he's just the physics guy. So if they don't have physics to study, really, he kind of just has to help where he can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they didn't quite get enough information out of them for him to do anything mathy with.
Right. I guess that mostly covers like the goodness things.
Yeah, mostly, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Beauty. What is beautiful in Arrival?
It's got a very grounded aesthetic
It
Yeah,
does.
for an alien movie.
for an alien movie.
I think, like, they got. I like the aesthetic inside.
The
ship.
cinematography is brilliant.
There was this great visual theme of separation between the humans and the heptapods.
There was a literal language barrier that they had to overcome.
They
to
were white on
communicate.
that side. Everything on their side of the glass was white. Everything on the human side of the glass was like this black, right?
Yep, darkness and light.
Something I kind of noticed is like throughout the course of the movie is that every time we flash back to Amy Adams in her house with the one big glass
Window of the lake.
Window over the lake, it reminded me of the framing of every time they interacted with the heptapods, where there was that big piece of glass where she was on one side of.
Well, and then the camera makes use a lot of, like, before she understands the language, like the cinematography, they have, like, very shallow depth of field shots where, like, the subject is in focus, but everything else is, like, incredibly blurry. And things become more and more into focus as time goes on in the movie. That was great.
Or, like, when they're entering the heptapod beam, the disorienting camera up with the upside down gravity or the sideways gravity, there was just one scene where they're walking in and it's upside down. They walk into the room and the camera's upside down relative to them because gravity and they're all disoriented because which way's up in this language.
Yeah.
So
not to mention like an encounter with a completely foreign like other beings, yeah. And the other thing, I was looking up some of the trivia and whatever on IMDb as we were watching the movie out of curiosity, and they mentioned like the cinematography, the approach they were taking with the movie was like, we wanted it to feel like a really bad Tuesday after it just rained. Like that feeling at the beginning of the movie. And I'm like, you know what? That is oddly specific, and that is the way I think I love it. Because that is how it feels at the beginning of the movie.
I think they did a really good job visually representing these concepts in a way that paired well and reinforced what the story was trying to tell. Because like it's hard to just sit there and explain all the time everything that's going on.
Because what are movies but a medium that a multimedia medium that communicates to the audience,
right? And so I like it when
they make full use of it.
Put meaning in their camera work or in their set design or in their lighting, right?
Yep.
That's good filmmaking.
Yeah. Because that was sort of the other thing with like the presentation of the heptapods too. Like they're nothing like crazy in terms of like alien creatures and things like that. Like they're unique certainly, but like over the course of
vaguely humanoid once she actually gets in there.
And that's actually another thing they do. Classic monster movie stuff where it's like you see them enveloped in fog, right?
Shroud in mystery at the beginning.
But slowly they drop that veil and you see more and more of them, and as the characters come to understand them more, they come clearer into view.
And it's sort of the subversion of that storytelling archetype where it's like the more friendly they are as they come to understand each other more, whereas in monster movies, like more of the oh crap
they
factor.
keep them opaque to keep you scared of them and guessing fear of the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at the beginning to have that element of fear of the unknown as they slowly let the fog lift.
Mm-hmm.
It's
where they literally bring her up to their level, where they're able to communicate most fluently.
On their side of the veil, there's no divide between them, both language-wise and physically.
Mm-hmm. And it is said that women in particular really want to get inside the head and the thoughts of others. At least
more empathetic.
Yeah, more empathetic. But I know I've talked to a lot of like ladies where they're just like they really want to know what's going on inside of our heads, like as guys generally. But
I mean, there's not much.
No, but like sort of like Louise kind of bears this out too, where she's literally able to think as the aliens do, which is kind of cool.
Think like the aliens. We did an episode on a book like that once.
Which one? Oh yeah,
we've done a couple of those.
Yeah, Ender's Game. What was the other one?
Starcraft.
Yeah. Bada bing, bada boom. It's all coming together.
Begome Alien.
But like
the case of
Kennedy. Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Oh yeah, but like aliens are a good like unknown other to insert into that kind of story.
That is sort of what the word means.
Exactly, right. But in this context, alien colloquially is understood to be extraterrestrial
space
beings.
creature.
Mm-hmm. Any other elements of beauty, I suppose? The soundtrack is sparing, but impactfully
the sound
used.
design
Yes.
is weird and mysterious and great.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with all the. Anyway.
But well, like the scene as they're first entering the alien spacecraft, like sort of like the heavy breathing over the microphone and the loud noises of the crinkly hazmat suit and things like that, just sort of heighten the tension and you know,
there's just like periods of dead silence. It's great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So yeah, lots to like about the film aesthetically. Unity, what brings everything together in the movie?
Meaning.
Language.
It's all about communication, baby.
It's called communication, baby.
Yeah, I got the quote wrong. Dang it. But
No,
you
it's
knew what I
called
meant.
Arrival.
Yeah.
You came to the right place, you ding dong.
Yeah. Really though. Yeah, it's about
Yeah.
meaning. What is meaning?
What does it mean to communicate with somebody?
What does it mean to mean?
What is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
What does it mean to perceive meaning?
What does it mean too?
What does it mean?
What does it?
What does?
What?
So I take it that we're about ready to wrap up here then,
I
yeah?
think so.
I think we brought it full circle.
Alrighty. Well, stalling while I bring up the exit script, which I should have memorized at this point. But
I mean, that brings it full circle with every other episode we've ever done. So
true.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and leave a rating to let us know what you think of the show. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. And we will talk to you again next week. Bye.
Bye.
see ya.
Blah.